All right, guys, today's review, 1984's debut album from W.A.S.P. Let's go! All right, guys, the debut album from W.A.S.P, W.A.S.P, from 1984. What does it stand for? We ain't sure, pal.
We ain't sure, pal.
I don't know. I've heard everything just like you have, and I think it was honestly just a marketing ploy to, get people talking during the Satanic Panic. W.A.S.P is one of those bands that's kind of unusual. My first experience with W.A.S.P was our buddy Tommy down the road had Inside the Electric Circus. I thought that was a really cool album. I enjoyed it, listened to it when we were over at his house and so forth. And so naturally, once you like one of the albums, you tend to start looking for the other stuff. And since the daily trip up to Sunburst Records was a benchmark of life back then, eventually I ran across the debut album from 1984 and got it for
$2.
Thanks, Jay. Once I started with that, I went and picked up some of the other ones as well. But that's how I initially got involved with W.A.S.P, was through one of their later efforts. Strangely enough, keep tuning in because there is a much later effort of W.A.S.P that actually ranks in top 3 of all time for me. Stay tuned and we'll maybe get to that one. So a bit of controversy.
Is this another Blackie Lawless being a bad guy again?
We're going to have to discuss this part of it. So W.A.S.P has a phenomenal song that is track 1 on the reissue of this album. So if you go out and buy this album now, you get an opportunity to hear the song Animal. And there's another title in parentheses after that, and you can understand probably why in 1984 the record label chose to pull that song from the album before its initial release.
I-F-U-C-K, like a beast, Animal. And is this the kind of album that you want your child to come home with? No.
So Animal is not being considered in any regard on this for any of the categories, nor is it being considered as part of the overall effort of the album, even though I should say if it were, it probably would have taken the cake for best song on the album and my favorite song on the album, and honestly one of my favorite W.A.S.P tunes of all time.
The outrageous edge of rock and roll has shifted its focus from Elvis's pelvis to the saw protruding from Blackie Lawless's codpiece on a W.A.S.P album.
It was originally only pressed overseas as a 12-inch single and available as an import. And then I think as sometime around the late 90s, they started adding it to the re-releases in the catalogs. But so for the purposes of this album, Animal, fuck like a baby! Not going to be in the running for anything, but not because I think less of the song, just because we're trying to stay true to what was available when these albums were initially released. So in the meantime, let's jump in and see how they started it off back in 1984. All right, we got to pick a best song off of this great album. I'm going with Love Machine. It just inches out I Want to Be Somebody. I think the punch to the song, the sing-along chorus, it's probably, honestly one of the best songs to wrap up all of the teenage angst that we were feeling at the time and really expressing ourselves with it. And like I said, that sing-along chorus, the L.O.V.E. That one put that one just a touch above for me. So that's why this one gets the best song. So the worst song for me on this one is going to be School Days. And it's hard for me to really put my finger on it. Probably the fact that it starts off with the full Pledge of Allegiance
of the United States of America
is enough to have, just kind of turned me off from a hard rock song. It's a toss-up, the torture never stops. The torture never stops. Could have easily taken the spot as the worst song on the album. It's just rather uneventful, kind of repetitive. One of those that I say is kind of, almost instantly forgettable. You know, the song ends, you're on to the next song. Really nothing about the song you just listened to stands out to you. So, you know, it's not awful. It's not an awful song. It's definitely the worst one on the album, though. Okay, guys, the most overrated song on this one, I'm going with Tormentor. I don't know why this one is usually held in such high regards by the W.A.S.P fans as one of their better earlier efforts. It's a good song, but doesn't really have anything in it that stands out from, you know, the rest of the album, to be quite honest with you. I don't think that it stands above many of the other songs that are of its equal. I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on why. I don't dislike the song at all, but I know that when you talk to W.A.S.P fans and they're eagerly talking about the earlier efforts, Tormentor always seems to be, you know, way up there on the list, and for me, it didn't stand apart from the rest of the album. All right, so the biggest good surprise here, for me is going to be the song Bad, B-A-D. Now, I don't know what's up with W.A.S.P and their infatuation with acronyms. I don't think it stands for anything in particular, but this is one that I think I can honestly say I certainly slept on back in the day. Didn't really register as much, but it's got a really cool tone to it. Just the overall sound was something that made this one kind of do a double take. Oh, what's that? I remembered the song, from listening to it back in the day, but it wasn't one that I would have ever, normally just gone to. But yeah, definitely one of their most underrated songs, maybe of their catalog, but certainly of this album. All right, guys, the biggest letdown on this album for me is going to be The Flame. That's the third song into the album, right after two really, really good hits. So back in the day when I would spin the album, of course, I would listen to the entire side, and I always really liked that song. In fact, I hadn't heard it in quite a while and was kind of excited to see it on the playlist coming up. And then when the song came on, it just sort of played and it was there, and then the song ended and I didn't really feel anything. I kind of wonder what it was that I liked so much about the song back in the day that made me feel so let down by it, because it's not a particularly bad song. It's just rather uneventful and kind of sounds like white noise, I guess, compared to the rest of the songs. It just didn't stand out and certainly didn't strike me as one that I remembered it being so bland. Back in the day, it was one of the ones that I would probably say I'd look forward to on the album. Today, going back listening to it, probably okay skipping that one and not missing out on too much. All right, gonna rank W.A.S.P's debut album, and I'm gonna give it an overall ranking of 7. That's a respectable ranking, and recently I have had the opportunity to go back and see Blackie, Lawless, and the current iteration of the band play this in its entirety, live and in sequence. So that really kind of got me excited to go back to do this review and listen to the album. I have to say, it's a really, really solid hard rock metal effort. Just knowing how long Blackie, Lawless, and W.A.S.P had been kind of at it before getting this break of their first album in '84. This one sounds a lot more polished than a lot of debut albums from bands from that same era, and I think you could chalk that up to Blackie's reputation for being a perfectionist and wanting to make sure that he has his finger on the pulse and his hand involved in everything that is put out. Notoriously was known for multiple takes and multiple do-overs to get it just like he had it in his mind, which you can't fault an artist for, I don't think. I think that's something that is a good quality, but I think that's probably why this debut album from 1984 comes off sounding a lot more polished than a lot of the other bands' debut albums that we're discussing. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm glad to have been able to review W.A.S.P's 1984 debut album for you. Let me know what you think. Did you like it a lot more than I did? Is it one you could do without? Let me know. Comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. And we look forward to doing a lot more of these videos. Don't forget to leave comments on what you might like to see, and we'll see what we can do about that. I appreciate you watching Larry on Eric and Darrell.